attending this webinar. So we will directly dive into this topic. Basically, it is an integrated battery charger for electric vehicles. Touch upon certain aspects which are very much important for going into this integrated battery charging. Basically, the fundamentals of grid connected converters and so on. And after that, we will see one particular case where we adapt a three-phase mission to do this integrated battery charging. So this is the outline of presentation. Because this is a web seminar and I expect some interaction with the participants, I will not waste time on outline. We will directly go into our content. So when we talk about electric vehicles, basically why we moved on to electric vehicles is because of some of the problems which we face in internal combustion engine based vehicles. So, the thing is the efficiency is quite low in such vehicles. Exhaust contribute to greenhouse effect. There are problems with air pollution, and again the problem is limited availability of fossil fuels. When you basically look at IC engine vehicles, you have to predict how much you would be spending for the lifetime of IC engine vehicles. Suppose you are a company and you're buying something like 100 cars, then you will have to see if the car's lifetime is around 20 years. You will have to estimate how much money you will be spending on the car. And with IC engine vehicles, what normally happens is the cost that the vehicle actually consumes is because of the fuel, and the fuel cost is not known. It is very subject to market rates, so it is very difficult to estimate what is the cost that you are going to put into internal combustion engine vehicles. So from the consumer perspective, even if you talk about efficiency or air pollution or greenhouse effect and such things, even from the cost perspective also, IC engine was difficult to handle because we were not able to predict what would be the expenditure because it is very fuel intensive. We will go to a small history with respect to electric vehicles. So the idea is electric vehicle uses at least one electric motor for propulsion. That is what is electric vehicle. And you normally have electric motors or anything in other vehicles as well. For example, your steering control, your wiper control, your even your this one that windows glasses control, everything is now motorized. But here, electric vehicle means you need at least one electric motor for its propulsion. That is the one that differentiates any other transportation electrification technology with respect to electric vehicles. So if you have some other electric motor or anything for an auxiliary utility other than propulsion, that comes under the category of transportation electrification. But if you have it for propulsion, then you can call it as electric vehicle. Then the power by electricity is from off vehicle sources. This is called plug-in electric vehicle. So basically, you can have an electric vehicle with batteries, but the source of power for the battery is fed externally, maybe from the grid, or maybe you can have a solar plant or whatever. Then electric vehicle also may be self-contained with battery, electric generators, and IC engine. These are called hybrid vehicles. So what happens is you have another uh, electric, you have IC engine basically, and you have another motor which aids the IC engine. That way, you will be able to operate the IC engine at its maximum efficiency point. So by allowing the IC engine to operate at its maximum efficiency point, you will get better mileage. That is why you will see cars now commercially available cars like say Maruti Ciaz. That's a hybrid electric version. They claim um, this one the mileage of around 26 kilometers on road. So these are some of the advantages of electric vehicles, especially hybrid electric. Then initially in the 1835, a small-scale electric car was built in Netherlands. We will see one picture of it. Then come to 1969, American Motor Corporation started research on producing electric car with self-charging battery. This was called hybrid vehicle. There was IC engine and there was also a battery. Then 2008, Toyota Prius was the first commercially mass-produced electric vehicle, and more than 500,000 units were sold. Most of the electric vehicle technology developed for Toyota Prius. That is basically looking at mass manufacture, battery technology, charging technology. Several standards were introduced because of commercialization and mass production of Toyota Prius. Then in 2015, electric vehicle market crossed a threshold of 1 million. It was basically a milestone. And now we see a lot of electric vehicles basically coming in various segments of vehicle market also. So these are pictures which I found very interesting. And 1895, this was the first electric car. This was a fully battery. There was no charging option. It was using lead acid battery. And once you go probably 20-30 kilometers, you will have to replace the battery. And this is one of this charging station in 19. So that time it would be very slow charging. We will see some of the technical aspects of vehicle charging. So now we'll go into electric vehicle classification from the perspective of charging. Uh, First category is battery electric vehicle. The idea is to use only battery to store energy. And the electric motors are those only electric motors. There is no internal combustion engine. So the idea is this battery electric vehicle, because there is no mechanical components involved, too many mechanical components involved, the vehicle is very light. So the advantage is you can just fill up the vehicles with lot of batteries. There is no issue there. That is what Tesla does, and that is why they are able to basically get very high range for per charge. Basically, per charge range is very high because you will be able to fill up the whole vehicle with lithium-ion batteries. The disadvantage in battery electric vehicle is if you have a lot of battery in the vehicle, you will also have to charge that battery, right? So charging also takes a long time. So you need power electronics, which is rated at very high level to charge such massive amount of batteries that is present in the vehicle. Then they looked into possibility of hybrid electric vehicle, where propulsion is a result of combined action of electric motors and internal combustion engine. Here we are looking at operating the IC engine powertrain at its efficient point. That way we are able to get slightly higher mileage. Then plug-in hybrid electric vehicle. In hybrid electric vehicle, that is second category, we don't need much batteries because we are only operating IC engine at its optimal point, and the remaining power is coming from battery sources. This remaining power basically could be higher or lower. So in that case, the IC engine drivetrain is charging the battery powertrain. That way, the battery requirement for hybrid electric vehicle is typically lower than fully battery electric vehicle. Now, plug-in hybrid electric vehicle can do both. It can take power from external power source, and also it can aid the existing IC engine for its efficiency, that is higher driving range. So with battery electric vehicle, you are limited by source of energy from the battery. So which means that you will have something called as range anxiety. When the battery runs out, which probably will run out in 150 to 300 kilometers is the typical range now. After 150 kilometers, you don't know what to do with your vehicle because you will have to find a port to charge your vehicle. So this causes something called as range anxiety. Hybrid electric vehicle, that range anxiety is minimal because you have fuel. You can use your petrol or diesel to your vehicle. Same aspect goes to plug-in electric vehicle also. So if you look at in terms of range anxiety, battery electric vehicle is the worst because you will always be worried about whether your electric vehicle is going to be discharged or not. In hybrid and plug-in hybrid electric vehicle, you have that opportunity. But still, in this case, you are not free of fuel-based technologies. That is, IC engine is required for HEV and PHEV. Now we will go into some of the aspects of grid-connected converters. Basically, a battery charger is also a grid-connected converters because we are taking the power from grid and then feeding it to battery. So in its simplest form, let us look at this um, converter, which is called as front-end converter. The idea of this converter is to have this inductor. Can you see my mouse pointer? Anybody? Are you able to see my
Yes, sir, we
mouse?
can. Yes, we can see.
Okay. So basically, the idea for any grid-connected converter is this: there is source, which is basically grid, which is an AC source. It can have different varying voltage, varying frequency, slow varying frequency, and so on. And then you have resistance which connects to the grid. and you have an inverter. Inverter is connected to battery. Here, what we basically look at is this voltage. This is called Vs, that is the source voltage, and this is the inverter voltage. We want to basically control this inverter voltage such that the current that you are drawing from this Vs should be in phase with Vs. So which means that you have to draw unity power factor current from the grid, and while you are drawing unity power factor grid, you will have to charge the battery. So now, how do we do that? If we look at the current equation through this inductance, this current equation is given by your number one, equation number one. So here you can see current is nothing but integral of difference of this voltage Vs minus V inverter. So by changing this V inverter voltage, we'll be able to control what is the current flowing through this interface inductance. This LS is called grid interface. Now we will quickly look at the phasor diagram. This is the source, which is Vs, and this is the inverter voltage V inverter that is coming from here. This is V inverter and this is V source. So whatever is the difference between those is the voltage across inductor. This is given by VL. Now this VL, we know that current through the inductor is 90-degree lagging voltage. So this would be our current from the grid, and we label two angles. One is the uh, angle between current and voltage, IS and Vs, which we call as power factor. And other one is angle between V inverter and Vs, which is basically angle between two voltages, that we call it as delta. So now here we are looking at two possible. We have Vs here, and what we do is we modulate V inverter such that this line, this difference is basically VL, which is 90-degree with respect to Vs. If we maintain that, then IS will be in phase with Vs. So this will mean that we are getting unity power factor. In this case, Vs and Is is in the same direction, so grid is supplying power to the inverter. In this case, it is exactly opposite. Our V inverter is um, basically on the other side, means again it is 90 degrees, and IS is opposing Vs, which means IS is flowing to supply power to the grid. And here only difference here is if you look at the angle delta, you can see that Vs is leading V inverter, first case, and in second case V inverter is leading Vs. By looking at this voltages which is leading or lagging, we'll be able to establish the direction of power flow from this inverter. So here if we see this Vs is leading and V inverter is lagging, power flow is from grid to this converter. And the other way is V inverter is leading and Vs is lagging, then the power flow is from inverter to grid. So this front end converter basically is a bidirectional converter which is capable of getting power or supplying power to the grid at any power factor. So there are several control structures or control methods that you can use to basically draw power from Vs. Basically, it all boils down to how you are modulating these inverters to maintain this. So one easy way is to basically go to this phasor diagram and calculate what should be V inverter, because you know what power you need. Basically, it is Vs into Is, or you know what current you take, and basically calculate what is your V inverter that should be, and then do it. But most of the cases, what happens is we don't know what is Vs, we don't know what its phase is, and we don't know what its voltage is. So often calculation is not possible. So go for some kind of control structure, which is in some way resilient to changes of Vs and changes of other system parameters. So here I've shown a very simple control algorithm. We have DC link reference. This is the DC link voltage here. What voltage we would like to control. If it is battery, then this part is not needed. DC link voltage reference is not needed. If we are connecting a load, then we can basically set the load voltage. If we are setting the battery, then this DC link reference is not required. This part of the control law is not required. You can directly give whatever the signal comes here. This signal is the current, the magnitude of current. So this sine omega t is the basically the grid. This omega t is the grid angle. Sine omega t is the waveform of the grid, and this is called the current template. If you look at one signal sine omega t, unit sine omega t, and this sine omega t signal is in phase with the grid usually, and then we call this as a current template. So what we basically need is, if we have current template here, and then the second signal, which is basically the peak of the current that is required, and if you multiply, we would get the current waveform. And this current waveform is basically going to be the current reference to the current controller. Once you have the current controller, you will be able to modulate this system using normal modulation technique. Sine triangle PW, you will see. So we'll be able to basically look at this system, this converter in this form. We have current reference, and this is current feedback, current controller, and this is the simplified model of the converter. T is nothing but the gain, and TD is half the period of the carrier waveform. So what this does is, this approximates the converter into a simplified first order transfer function, and this is valid because we are looking at a larger time scale. Suppose we want to control this current. This current control is going to happen once every say 10 milliseconds is the time constant. But this inverter is going to switch at much uh, higher frequency, right? So if we are talking about inverter switching at 10 kilohertz, we are talking about this TD of something like 100 microseconds, 50 to 100 microseconds. This current is going to change once in 10 milliseconds. This is going to change in 10 microseconds, 100 microseconds. So there is at least a decade or 2 decades difference. So this approximation is justified in this case. And this is the um, transfer function of the inductor. Suppose you have resistance, inductance also has resistance in series, and then this gets modified to SL plus R. So, but for control design, you can consider this SL alone, because SL plus R will give us a damped system, which is easier to control when divided by SL. So I'm not going to the derivations, but what basically the crux of this is, choose KC such a way that you get required damping factor, that is zeta should be equal to 0.7. You write the transfer function here, and then closed loop transfer function, and then set Kc such that the overall zeta of this is is prime should be 0.7, 0.707. Then we come to voltage uh, voltage control. Here also you can use the same technique, basically looking at this, or you can go for some other control method like symmetric optimization or modulus Hurling. Uh, this fairly basic, and we have a very good NPTEL lecture by Professor Gopakumar. I have just given the reference here. So basically, it is number 10 to 15 in Professor Gopakumar's NPTEL lecture. And what he does in this lecture series is, he takes the same front-end converter. It is not for electric vehicle charging in any sense. It is a generic converter. But what he does is, he goes through the design of the converter, control loop formulation, controller design methods, and then it ends in a simulation of front-end converter. So I request you to this resource if you need more information about single-phase front-end converter. But now for electric vehicles, if you are using single-phase front-end converter, what happens is the rate at which the vehicle can be charged is limited, because from a single-phase supply we can at the maximum draw 5 amps or 15 amps as of now. We cannot draw more power than that unless we use some very specific industrial supply And for electric vehicles, what we want is we would like to have the option of charging the electric vehicle from any given outlet. So in that case, going for single phase um, system will not be beneficial. So we are looking at the options of faster charging. So we need three phase. So three phase front end converter is also very similar. Only in this case we have three phase supply, three inductors, and a three phase inverter instead of single phase inverter in the uh, single phase APC. Now the idea here is also very similar, but because it's a three phase system, we'll be able to talk in terms of P and Q access component, that is the synchronous reference frame components. There things become slightly. So now when we are looking at this converter, the objective is again the current through each phase will be sinusoidal and in phase for typical front-end converter operation. It is also possible to operate this converter at a different power factor. We will come to those also later. But primary goal is this: we should be able to charge the battery at unity power factor because it is a three-phase system. Higher current can be drawn or higher power can be handled by converter. Now, in this three-phase front-end converter, we will see that active and reactive power flow can be controlled in both directions. That is, you can supply active power and take active power from the grid, and similarly, reactive power also can be freely exchanged, and those can be controlled independently in such a system. Then, which also means that you can compensate for certain nonlinear loads or transients, and it can also act like STATCOM or harmonic compensator. Option is also there. And now, if you are basically operating it like STATCOM, then yeah, if you are operating like STATCOM, then um, we will see that there is no real power exchange between grid and battery. But say you have your car that is parked in your parking slot, and then your battery is full, then you are still connected to the grid. You might as well supply some reactive power to the grid at actually zero cost. You are not taking power from your battery, but still you will be able to do STATCOM operation and improve on the grid reliability and security. That is an option that exists with this converter. Then sinusoidal currents can be drawn and it can also be fed back to the grid. So this front-end converter being a generic converter, we'll be able to use it for renewable energy integration, uninterrupted power supplies like vehicles. So now we will look at this system. Uh, I hope that all participants know about Clark's transform, synchronous reference frame and all. So I'm just jumping into the fundamental power transfer mechanisms here. So this alpha beta is the stationary reference frame. Basically, we have ABC voltages of the grid, and then once we have ABC, I can basically represent it into two orthogonal axes, which is also stationary. So any current which is represented in alpha beta axis will have a sinusoidal or a circular trajectory. So this here I have mentioned other two axes called. So these are rotating reference D and Q axis. So the speed of the rotation matches with the speed of rotation of the grid voltages. Suppose we have phasors, ABC phasors. Phasors are rotating quantities, right? So D and Q reference frames also rotate along with the rotating phasors. So as seen from this D and Q axis, we would get a non-rotating or a stationary voltage and stationary current that we are basically drawing or available at the grid. So this reference frame transformation will allow us some flexibility in controlling the system. So we will see that shortly. So here, if you look at this system, front-end converter, I'm again going here. We have this voltage VA, that's the grid voltage, and inverter voltages. Suppose we call it as V inverter, and then we have this LS. So this I've shown it as LS, but we will take LS series with some resistance. If we This is the VSD and VSQ into e power j theta. E power j theta is the rotating vector, or it is the quantity that makes this VSD plus j VSQ rotate at angle theta. Basically, omega t is theta. So in that case, what happens is this is basically a sinusoidal space vector, basically a rotating space vector here. So this is the grid voltage. TVIQ is the inverter voltage. So basically, what we are mentioning here is the source voltage, that is the grid voltage, is sum of inverter voltage across inductor, that is L di by dt, plus voltage across the resistance of the inductor, that is R into I. So source voltage, it's basically KVL. Source voltage, that is this voltage, is sum of this voltage, that is the inverter voltage, plus by dt plus resistance of this inductor. Now, once we write this equation, we will be able to extract out the real and imaginary terms. Now we see two different equations, independent equations for VSQ and VSD, actually VSD. Now, one trick we have done here is we align VS along Q axis. Once we align VS along Q axis, so the full magnitude of Vs is reflected on Vq itself. So Vp will become automatically 0. So by doing this, I will get two equations. That is equation number. Okay. For this analysis and design of three-phase front-end converter, it's a very nice reference paper. I have given it here. This paper can be downloaded freely. It is an open access paper. Vector control of three-phase AC/DC front-end converter. So this is like a tutorial paper, probably around 18 to 20 pages, and this goes deep into derivation and control algorithms, even startup of this front-end converter. Now the idea is same. How do we control uh, power in this case? Suppose we are looking at unity power factor operation. So Vs is this vector Vq. So if I want to take care of unity power factor operation, then my ISD should be equal to 0. So if I ensure that ISD equal to 0 by using current controllers and push only current ISQ, then I will be able to push only take power at unity power factor from the grid. Same thing happens in the other way also. I give negative ISQ and 0 ISD, I'll be able to send power to. If I want to operate it like STATCOM, and I just give ISD reference and make ISQ reference 0, then predominantly I will be only consuming the reactive power. And if I give ISD as negative, then I will be able to supply reactive power to the grid. So this ISD and ISQ are 90-degree in space. So I will be able to control each component, that is ISQ and ISD, independently without affecting the other. Okay. Now we will go into integrated battery chargers with this background. So till now what we have seen is we are looking at three-phase front-end converter. It's a very simple system. It has grid voltage and it has inverter voltage. By controlling the inverter voltage, we'll be able to control the current through the inductors. And looking at it from Cronus reference frame perspective, we can conclude that we'll be able to control the real power and reactive power independent of each other just by using current controllers. Power and reactive power of this system is now used into ISQ and ISD language. And if we have ISD and ISQ, if we are able to control that, then in principle we can control. So before this integrated battery charging system, we saw three kinds of electric vehicles. One is uh, pure battery electric vehicle, and other one is plug-in hybrid electric vehicle and hybrid electric vehicle. And we also saw the problem of the range anxiety, which is there in normal electric vehicle. Go to that slide. Yes. This battery electric vehicle has a problem of range anxiety. You increase the battery, then charging time also increases. And if you increase the battery, you get more range anxiety. The only way to avoid that problem in a battery electric vehicle is to make sure that we have access to charging stations at all places. The problem with that is scenarios like India, it is very difficult to have high power charging stations that is that is made accessible for um, all the highways. And so now we will look at two kinds of chargers which are typically in the market. Off-board chargers that we have charging stations in the highway, uh, parking lots in apartments also. This is called off-board charging. The charger is actually not a part of vehicle. It is outside the vehicle. And to address range anxiety, people came up with this idea of on-board chargers. So you carry the charger along with your vehicle. So with every available power source, you will be able to charge the vehicle. So it is something like carrying your laptop charger along with your laptop. So you need a um, power supply, and then you just plug in your charger. In this case, the on means it's like the charger is a part of your laptop. You don't have to have a separate charging station like how you find in airports. So here there are two types of onboard battery chargers: conventional and integrated. Conventional battery chargers shown in figure A. Here you can see the driving components is uh, this is the battery. The driving components are inverter and induction motor, and the charging components are battery charger and the grid. So we park the vehicle, the grid is available, and then we have battery charger and this three interface inductors as components for this particular EV charger. So this is what is called onboard charger. Now, if you look at charger component, it is like a dead weight. It will do no work other than add mass to the vehicle when the vehicle is actually in the propulsion mode. Then comes the concept of integrated battery charging, where you have a battery charger. Basically, it's like a small DC-DC converter, and then an inverter and a typically a multi-phase machine with some switches. So here you see the system is in driving mode, basically in propulsion mode. Battery powers this multi-phase induction machine like this from left to right, and charging mode, because of the presence of grid, this switch should be reconfigured to connect to the grid. When it is driving, there is no grid. It ends here. The system ends here. But when it's charging, the grid has to connect it to mission, and then the power flows back. The important takeaway difference in these two things is inductors. Which are there. These are 50 inductors. If you are talking about Indian power system, the frequency is 50 hertz. So if we have to process something like 20 kilowatts in a three-phase system with 50 hertz magnetics, then the size is going to be very high, size and weight. So you cannot carry uh, large inductors in an electric vehicle. And secondly, these are extra components. So because we are not able to carry huge inductors, typically the onboard chargers, the conventional onboard chargers are very so basically that one less than 5 kilowatt, less than 3 kilowatt probably for offboard, for onboard chargers. But if we go for integrated chargers, we are not having any additional inductors that are required. But we need this grid connected inductor, right? So this inductance is basically we are using the machine's leakage inductance as the grid interface inductance in this. So definitely when we look at the three-phase front-end converter, we saw how important the inductor is. Basically, the inductor is the component which determines the current in the system. So that job of determining current, that job of interface inductance is done by the leakage inductance of multi-phase induction machine. So what are the challenges in recharger? Motor leakage inductance is used as grid interface inductance, which means we are avoiding the biggest and the bulkiest component in the electric vehicle. Then basically going to consume current from the grid. Uh, three-phase sinusoidal currents are going to flow through the motor terminals. If at all we are replacing motors terminals as the inductance terminals. So in that case, when we are drawing three-phase typically balanced currents, then we should ensure that the torque is not created in the motor. Otherwise, the vehicle will move when we are charging. So that's the problem. So we should get the grid, maintaining all the grid compliance standards. At the same time, the motor should not accelerate or motor should not generate torque. This is the ideal case. Then grid current should be done at unity power factor, and if it is able to give more it is better, but at least it should be able to draw power at unity power factor. And reuse of driving circuit for battery charging. So here, if you look at this case, you have to be able to use the same inverter for charging, and we are able to use the same motor as interface inductor. That is the advantage. Here again, we single phase option and three phase option. Single phase option, inherent zero torque production is possible. Suppose you have a three phase motor and this is a single phase grid here. So basically what we have to do is we have to ensure the same current is flowing through all three windings. If the same current is flowing through all three windings, then motor would not develop any flux. Flux will get cancelled in the air gap, and then motor produces zero torque. But if we have a three phase induction and then we use a three phase grid, then that is not possible because windings are dispersed in space, currents are dispersed in time, create rotating. In single phase grid, that problem is not there because we are passing the same current through all the through all the windings of the. Okay. In three phase machine, in the three DC, we are looking at current. Uh, Typically, there is no inherent zero torque production, but we need a system with zero torque production. Winding reconfiguration might be required. Fast charging is possible, and typically, so here I have given some references which have covered integrated battery chargers. I think most of the work has been done by Professor Emil Levy from UK, and he typically works on multi-phase missions. And one of the very important utility of multi-phase missions for integrated battery chargers. And just look at these papers, provide the references in the last section. So here we will see a trend that if you use a five-phase mission instead of a three-phase mission, you need five inverter legs, and hardware reconfiguration is also needed, which basically means that when you are driving the motor, you need to basically do to the switch matrix. These windings have to be changed by connecting it and disconnecting it so that you will get zero torque, which means that you need a five phase converter and you need a. Then other option that he has suggested is nine phase induction machine. Nine converter legs are required. So the problem here, all the reference 1 to 5, we have higher number of converter legs. So basically, we are dealing with multi-phase mission, and then but our converter also should change. It should either be five phase or nine phase or six phase converter. You cannot use a three phase converter. Other reconfiguration also is likely to be required. So which means that suppose we are having an electric vehicle and we want to make implement integrated battery charging, then we will have to change the electric motor. Currently, it's only three phase. First, we have to change the motor, and secondly, to run the motor, we have to change the inverter. So it is like almost changing the whole drivetrain. We are looking at a possibility where we can basically use the available motor and available converter to do the same thing. Can we do it with inverters with three legs? That is the question. So here I have basically listed existing three-phase motor with slight modification can be used. We know to use that. Existing three-phase three-leg traction inverter is also used. So there is no inverter replacement required. Same circuit for driving and charging mode, which is the requirement of integrated battery charging. Fast charging is possible. It's three-phase system. Unity power factor, vehicle to grid operation, that is sending power to grid from operations. So from the front end perspective, we are not losing any of the functionality. Now we will see how to get this. So if we look at this machine, uh, basically this is a three phase. I just zoom here. So this This is a winding. A1, A2 is a winding of a three-phase machine. So what we basically do is this middle point make it available. So basically in one of the phase belts of the phase, I take the middle point. Similarly, I assume that the middle points of B phase, B1, B2 is available and C1, C2 is also available. Now, for driving mode, what can be done is if A1 and A2 is connected in series, it becomes a three-phase machine. A1, A2 is connected in series, B1, B2 is also connected in series, C1, C2 is connected in series. For charging operation, I connect A1, A2 in parallel, B1, C2 in parallel, and B2, C1 in parallel. So for charging operation also, because it is a series and parallel change, the number of legs required remains the same. So if I want to run motor, I connect A1, A2 in series, B1, B2 in series, C1, C2 in series, and it becomes a three-phase motor. For charging, I connect A1, A2 in parallel, B1, C2 in parallel, and B2, C1 in parallel. Then I will be able to charging operation. So the reason for connecting A1, A2 in parallel is suppose same current, assume that same current flows to A1 and A2. So the direction of flux is here, shown in blue color line. That is, if A1 and A2 is 30 degrees split, this is called a split phase machine because we are splitting the phase belt. So each belt is 60 degrees in a three phase machine. Splitting, so belt becomes 30 degrees. So the flux that is generated because of identical currents in A1, A2 will be along this line, this blue line. Similarly, we will see that because of identical currents flowing in B1 and C2, the flux will again be on this blue line because of the symmetry. Again, B2 and C1 also this current flowing in this winding also will be along this blue line. So now what basically we have done is because the flux can exist only in this blue line, passing any kind of current, these windings will cause flux that is basically only on this blue line, which means there is no rotating magnetic created in the machine because of flow of current. Magnetic field that is created has become a pulsating magnetic field, this particular winding connection. So that is where that switch matrix comes in. That's the switch matrix basically is like a relay or a contactor which is capable of doing this connection. So for driving mode, we do A1, A2 series and so on. So we have a three-phase motor. We are running with a three-phase inverter. For charging mode, we have the proposed charging configuration parallel. The idea is again use a three-phase inverter. We will be able to charge it because we are not generating a rotating magnetic field. There is no torque production. So now there is also a mathematical proof for this. Now I have just told it intuitively. Or the other way to tell this, other way is also there. I'll try to explain. Suppose you look at this winding A1, E1, and C1. Suppose this is R phase, this will be Y phase, and this will be B phase. If we are calling it RYB for A1, B1, and C1, that is basically rotating, have creating rotating magnetic field anti-clockwise direction. And if you look at A2, B2, C2, the phase is reversed. It is A2, C2, and B1, B2. So A2, B2, C2 creates a rotating magnetic field in anti-clockwise direction. So this way also we will be able to prove that there is no rotating magnetic field that is produced. We have two magnetic fields that is rotating in opposite direction. Same thing can be done in alpha beta reference frame, DQ reference frame, or just replace this machine model with the split phase machine model, you will get torque as zero. Okay. So here there is some mathematical analysis with alpha beta plane. Here you can see that okay, if torque is given by some constant into I beta into IR alpha, I alpha, IR beta. So here if we are aligning on alpha axis in degree line, you will know that I beta is 0 because symmetry. And in this case, IR beta will be 0 because there is no flux produced in beta axis. So in these two ways, you will be able to. Now let us look at the control algorithm. We have three currents, and from three currents, these are the sense currents. We get ID and IQ, D axis current and Q axis current, And here we can basically set this current. These are the current references in current controller and some feed forward terms. And this feed forward terms can be got by the same way that we saw the modeling of the converter, and then have inverse Parkes transform and we'll modulate the inverter. The idea is by setting this ID reference and IQ reference, like how we saw in a three-phase front-end converter, we'll be able to um, operate this converter in whichever mode we want. Suppose we are dealing with battery operation. So ID is basically for reactive power control. Is active. We will see that here. And we also saw that our Q axis is in line with the VS. So that can be easily done with uh, because we are defining the angle of D and Q. We'll be able to force that D should be equal to 0 and theta will be automatically calibrated. So if our Q axis, IQ, Q axis is along with, then the real power, that's the active power, will be V to ISG. And reactive power, obviously, it is proportional to ISD. And Vs is the grid voltage. We don't have control on it, and it is assumed to be constant for the time duration which we are interested in. So if Vs changes, automatically active power will change, but the feedback, our control will take care of it. So if I want to increase the active power, I should basically increase IQ reference, and automatically our active power that we are drawing from the grid would increase, and so on. So by having this reference ID and IQ reference control over this, we'll be able to extract and active power and reactive. Typically, this ID and IQ references are generated by a supervisory mechanism, maybe a battery management system or a charge controller or charge scheduler, or even if you are looking at some microgrids, then it can also be a grid parameter. So irrespective of that, how the controller, because they are changing the reference of ID and IQ. So we will go into control loop structure. This is also the standard thing. Can basically refer that Professor Narayanan's paper. So I'm skipping this part. So the control loop is basically the same. Only difference for IBC that here, because of this winding reconfiguration that is being done, we have unbalanced inductance. It is not balanced anymore. The inductors are unbalanced. So because of that unbalance, you will have to have an unbalanced modulating waveforms here. That has to be taken care. Other than that, the control algorithm. I will not go into details of control algorithm here. I will give you a reference for that. Easy trick that can be wherever you see a problem. Suppose there is an unbalance here, we'll have negative sequence currents flowing, right? So one easy method is basically give a very high gain at that frequency. Positive sequences in positive sequence current is DC in DNQ axis, the negative sequence will be minus 50 hertz, 100 hertz, right? My negative sequence is 100 hertz. Where negative sequence is rotating in the other direction, we are plus at 50 hertz. So at 100 hertz, you give a very high gain. So that can be done with several controllers. You can probably use J controller or PDF. It's a second degree of freedom controller. You have one controller here and other one. Basically, we are giving something like rate feedback. Other controller that can be used because we need high gain at one particular frequency. You can also use PR controller, proportional controller. When we are using proportional resonant converter, we can implement it in any reference frame because it has very high gain at any given frequency, fixed by this omega square, the transfer function of proportional resonant converter. If we want very high gain at 50 hertz, we can fix it. But if you are going for reference, this one, synchronous reference frame, then we will get high gain only at 50 hertz because our PLL is tracking that 50 hertz. But using proportional resonant, we'll be able to get very high gain at any arbitrary frequency. You look at this controller, so you can see that you're able to get high gain at any given frequency. And more importantly, omega square also can be made adaptive. when the grid frequency changes, be able to track the frequency and fix the gain of this. Now, this was one of the experiments that was done. Basically, we took a six-phase mission. This is the six-phase mission. It was a three-phase mission. We took out the windings, redesigned the windings, and made the six-phase. And that is the method that I would propose for a normal electric vehicle, because you already have a three-phase mission. You don't need a new mission. It's the same enclosure, same thing. Everything is same. Only thing is you have to take tappings. So this is a three-phase mission, reconfigured as six-phase mission, and we have inverters and all the other things that are required for grid connected control. So initially, what we did was we did PLL, and now this is the voltage of the grid, and there is some current that is flowing in one of the phases. All three phases take, and this is the encoder output. This is basically to show that the mission is not rotating when we pass sinusoidal current through the mission. So our hypothesis that this particular um, winding structure or the reconfiguration creates only pulsating magnetic torque, or at least it doesn't create rotating or it doesn't create torque, is valid. We can see that there is no pulses that is coming from the encoder output. Then with normal PI controller, we can see that voltage and current, PA and IA are unity power factor is with PDF controllers, PR controllers, and then here we can see what is the PI, PDF, and PR current RMS. This is different because you have negative sequence flowing into the system. It is not like you have three inverters. We have a very unbalanced system here because one system, one phase is basically 30 degree apart. Other phases are almost 135 degrees apart. So we have problems there, but this also can be solved by looking at extracting out the inductance terms. So now we will go to the more interesting parts. So now these are two operating points here. This is the PLL's estimate of grid angle, and now we see this is the grid voltage. Now here basically trying to get power from the grid, so current is in phase with grid voltage. So this is normal charging operation of the inverter. Now if you want to send power, that is called 2G operation, equal to grid. So we see that the phase is reversed for V2G operation. So this system is capable of operating two ways. Here we go for DC link voltage control. In the case of a battery, we don't have to control DC link voltage. The DC link voltage is set by the battery itself. But if you are operating it as a front-end converter and using the same system, then we will be able to set a reference for a voltage and then see what is the dynamics of this. So here we can see the voltage set point increases, and then we also decrease. And then we can see the respective change in currents. Here it is, I think, from 450 to 350 volt change they have done. Now, step change in load is done here. Basically, the load switch in and switch out resistors, and the controller is able to respond to step changes. And here this startup of the system, and this can be implemented by all three controllers. So this is for the PI case. PI controllers for startup and step change in load, PDF controller for step change in load and startup. Now we can see STATCOM operation. Here we are looking at 90-degree phase shifted current with respect to voltage, and here there's a change given. So the reactive power that is going is basically doubling. And here it is becoming half, so increasing and decreasing reactive power. Now, basically what we have seen is we have seen a new integrated battery charger with retrofit capability. This retrofitting comes because we are basically using available inverter, that's a three-phase inverter and a three-phase motor for doing this job of integrated battery charging. In all other available already published methods, we need a different inverter and a different motor. It cannot be done with three-phase inverter and motor. So the existing three-phase mission can be modified. We are taking tappings out of the motor, and same stator can be reused, which means we don't have to worry about any of the mechanical aspects of the system. It is identical to the same, the mounting, everything is the same. The winding, the diagram, and we have experimented it for normal battery charging operation, front-end operation, V2G, and STATCOM applications. Transient things are given here. And in this case, the cost to change is minimal because only extra hardware that we need is a set of relays or contactors, which are basically going to reconfigure the switch machine, but that can be easily accommodated. Now, I would like to acknowledge help of two students, Ranjit and Vidya, um, for making these slides this part of their final year project and their PhD work here. And one of the papers that I would like to point to for more information or detail is an integrated EV battery charger with retrofit capability, transportation electrification, I mean, IEEE transactions on transportation electrification. You will see a lot of information on controller design, more mathematically rigorous proof for zero torque production, how much you should derate the mission, what would be the rating of the IBC, all such additional information you will be able to get. In this webinar, we will not be able to cover it because of the shortage of time. So that brings me to conclusion of this webinar now. If there is any questions that is required, then you can just post it on the chat and we'll take up a few questions. Is that okay? In this grid connected converters, when we are talking about fairly balanced system, then going to PI controller is one of the easy um, to achieve zero steady state error and reasonable performance. But in certain cases, you will notice that PI controller is not sufficient, especially in this IBC that we saw, because we are looking at an unbalanced system here. So we go for more sophisticated controllers, maybe second degree of freedom controllers or PR controllers. But PI controller is easiest to design, easiest to implement, and is proved to be very effective. That is why it is our first line of defense. So in most cases, in fact, in power electronics, we use only P controller because for most applications that is enough. Some cases we go for PI. In very rare cases, we go for more sophisticated. Any other questions from audience?
There's one more question, Sudarshan, by Jason, I
Yes,
think.
madam.
What kind of
So there's one. Okay. Uh, for that, have you studied the effect of unbalance on intermittent DC? That effect of unbalance is also studied. That is actually what we have done. One of the follow-up work is this unbalanced inductance. If it is a motor, it is very difficult to handle. But once we extract out what is the inductance of that particular motor configuration, we'll get an inductance matrix. We have six terminals here, so it's a 6x6 matrix. Once that is known, we're able to exactly evaluate what can be done for this. What is a PDF controller? So PDF controller is called as pseudo differential feedback controller. It's a second degree of freedom controller, two degree of freedom controller. There's a form like this. Okay. This is basically you have PI controller. If you have PI controller, this is the error, feedback and reference error. You have one controller here. Here you have two controllers, one controller here and one in the feedback part. So this type of control structure is called PF controller. This is one form of generic controller called two degree of freedom controller. This has certain advantages. You can basically improve its response without going for overshoot. That possibility is there. So in very tricky systems, this usually PDF control will solve the problem. Otherwise, what we have to do is you have to go on increasing the order of this control. Instead of using a PI controller, you have more coefficients. The control. Instead of that, we'll be able to more effectively do if we go for two degree of freedom. can you explain us on the mission winding configuration, the connection being made manually? Okay. So that's a very good question. In this case, mission rewinding configuration has to be made. In an actual product, it cannot be made manually. It has to be a part of your charging mechanism. Basically, it is like switching in and switching out certain windings, but that can be automated also because we are basically looking at relays. Whenever we charge, basically any charger, if we do, has to have an information layer and it has to have a power layer also. So while we are talking about the protocols, the information, you would have necessary information to change the winding configuration of this. In a practical electric vehicle, it is not advisable to do it manually. You have to do it. It is a part of the charging automation process. What is the power rating of charger? Because current rating is very less. Okay. So power rating is determined like this. If at all a motor is rated at, we are talking about induction motor. Suppose we take a 15 horsepower motor. So 15 horsepower typically can take 23 amps of current. Right. So this charger can support 23 into 46 amps of current. That would be the power rating of a charger. Whatever is the current rating of the motor can be doubled. Because in a motor operation, A1 and A2, two windings are connected in series, but in charging operation, A1 and A2 is connected in parallel. So your charging capability is the double size and double the motor rating, motor current rating. That has to be taken care by the control design. The power electronics perspective, there is nothing that you can do. What will be the variation efficiency? Of course, the battery efficiency will be reduced with aging, but that is true for all cases. In this case, there is no other degradation in battery happening. It is very simple to prove that. Suppose you have three sinusoidal voltages in the grid, and we are getting three sinusoidal currents. So the energy that is coming from the grid, if you look at the energy, that is instantaneous power, that is uniform. There is no oscillation to it. So when there is uniform power that is being taken from the grid in a three-phase case, you can also prove that there is no current flowing into the capacitor. So here the DC link power is also uniform. So basically we end up charging this battery with uniform current. That is true for a three-phase charger as well as it is true for the proposed IBC charger also. So there will not be any additional degradation of the battery because of integrated battery charging. Okay. Another question is there any specific criteria for selecting damping ratio of 0.7? Actually, that comes from the typical mm, uh, optimization from the control system perspective. We need reasonable settling time and we don't need much overshoot. From that sense, 0.7 is considered to be a good number. Typically, there's no requirement that you have to do. But it is advisable to have a damping ratio very close to 1. That way, you are dealing with a system with no damping, with very high damping, that is no overshoot. And that is exactly why we use second degree of freedom controllers. Since are repeated here, the midpoint of windings for all windings. Yes,
Yeah.
it is the midpoint.
Very happy to see that you have explained everything. Uh, Smaller things and other things you can only a person who does it practically only can say. You have actually explained those things, which are very good. And most of them would appreciate when they actually start doing it. And of course, you have given all the references also, so it is very useful for all the attendees, and I hope that they actually benefit from it and they make use of it. We're always happy to have very good speakers, and Sudarshan Karthik, you have actually to say expressed it in your words with best inputs to the attendees. Thank you very much for all that, and indeed thankful to all the attendees also. To, this is one of the best topics to attend and continue to listen to it. So I